wave that arms and cast the shadow of a snake fits on the wall.
Growing up in England through the noughties and 2010s, it was difficult to not be exposed to the music of Arctic Monkeys. Their catchy hits would be played at house parties with lyrics about teenage romance and tomfoolery being immediately relatable. At the heart of their music is the drumming of Matt Helders. His approach to the drum parts across their 7 albums is a key component to their success and appeal. In the early noughties, 4 lads from Sheffield came together to form Arctic Monkeys. Alex Turner on guitar and lead vocals, Jamie Cook on guitar, Andy Nicholson on bass, later replaced by Nick O'Malley, and Matt Helders on drums and backing vocals. Helders recalls that he chose to play the drums because they were the only thing left. In 2006, they released their debut album, Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not. It quickly became a record-breaking, chart-topping release that established the group as one of the hottest upcoming outfits in the world of indie rock and garage rock revival. Their second release, Favorite Worst Nightmare, was built on similar indie rock foundations but was more ambitious in its scope. This slight but discernible change in sound from their first to second record is indicative of one of the most fascinating aspects of the group, which is the evolution of their music over time. We'll revisit this notion later with a specific emphasis on Helders' sound. Where the first 2 albums can be broadly categorized as indie rock, their third, Humbug, was a little harsher and heavier. Elements of psychedelic and stoner rock were more prevalent, most likely due to the involvement of Queens of the Stone Age frontman Josh Homme. His effect is similarly evident on Suck It and See, the group's 4th album released in 2011. In 2013, Arctic Monkeys released what many see as their most popular album and some would say their best, AM. Plenty of hits, varied in style, refined production. It was a high point in their career for a multitude of reasons and was yet another notable shift in style from their previous release. Tranquility Base, Hotel and Casino, and The Car, their 6th and 7th albums released in 2018 and 2022 respectively, comprise the latest stylistic period for the group. The tunes are laid back and velvety, with the band embracing baroque, chamber and arty tropes on both records. In my mind, I look at Arctic Monkeys' discography as 4 periods, the first being 2 albums that are iconic to the noughties indie rock scene, filled with youthful vigour and intensity. They were followed by 2 darker and fuzzier releases that are more exploratory and mature, whereas AM stands alone as a singularly poppy album. Finally, we've got the silky smooth baroque period they're currently in. There's also a secret 5th period which is called Subscribe to Offbeat and drop us a like if you're enjoying the video. I think what makes Helders a noteworthy drummer isn't just his ability and approach to drum parts, which are great and we'll get into, but more than that is his adaptability to the band's sound across their 7 albums.
I mean, it's strange to look at it as one big thing, like 7 albums, the first one to this one. It probably is quite hard to like describe it in one, like what that is. Lyrically it's changed, musically it's changed a lot, and we were teenagers and now we're really not. But it does sound a lot more grown up and a lot more like mature in a way. But I think it's just we naturally got better at what we do. We got better at playing our instrument, better at making records, better at writing songs, and I think the evolution of that has been natural.
So let's jump back to that first period again. Helders was in his late teens, early 20s around this time and wrote his drum parts with the expected energy of someone that age. If you take the verse section of one of their biggest hits, When the Sun Goes Down, its busy bass drum pattern and hi-hat barks are perfect in keeping up the intensity and rhythm of the track.
She makes a subtle proposition. I'm sorry, love, I'll have to turn you down. Oh, we must be up to summer.
Brainstorm is another great example of Helders' fresh creativity. I think the opening tom groove is one of the best drum parts he's written because it's so catchy. For an indie rock band that's known for coming up with memorable riffs and hooks, I think it says a lot that, musically, the drum groove is the catchiest part of the song for me. Potentially a controversial opinion, let me know what you think. Not only that, but they're front and center both compositionally and in the mix. They're not taking a back seat, they're firmly driving the groove. If you're watching this and you're a drummer or you have drummers in your life, then you should definitely check out Vic's Drum Shop and use the code OFFBEAT to get 20% off drum equipment. Based in Chicago, they have everything from sticks, cymbals, drums, stands, percussion, and so much more. They also have mountains of knowledge and experience in case you need any free of charge advice on anything drum related as well. In making a purchase, you'd be supporting the channel and a fantastic music shop too. Skyrocketing to success at an early stage of his career and drumming journey helped define Helder's early style, but it's this first transition in Humbug and Suck It and See where we begin to see an interesting shift. One of my favourite Monkeys tracks acts as a fantastic representation of Helder's style at this point in time. Pretty Visitors has two sections in particular that I want to highlight. The first is the chorus, in which Helders plays a frenetic, dense part made up of quick repeated fills around the kit. It's fast and technical, but also so bold and imaginative. I'm sure a less adventurous drummer would have come up with something more plain and normal. The second part is just before the final section of the song, where you get a really clear idea of that dark, heavy, fuzzy sound that the group was striving to capture on the record. Helder's playing becomes really stripped back all of a sudden, but it doesn't lose any intensity at all. That same menacing, romping sound can be heard on Don't Sit Down Cause I Moved Your Chair from the Successive album. The treatment of the guitars and the mixing of the instruments creates this thick wall of sound. Once again, Helder's part is more subtle, allowing the weight of the music to breathe and have greater impact. Moving to AM, Helder's drums continue to morph, this time even more stripped back but still extremely effective. In this interview with Zane Lowe, he talks about two big influences on the drums for the album.
What were your drumming influences on this record? Because again, your performance on every Arctic Monkeys album is very different, and this one feels like it's very powerful, but it lacks some of the kind of frantic energy of previous records, and it certainly isn't where you've ended up at this point in your career, which is really serving at the altar of the song very delicately and tastefully. So, what were you trying to achieve with your parts on this?
I think as a whole, the band was sort of influenced in how a band like Black Sabbath can be heavy with few elements.
Groove. Yeah.
And it's not just like throwing a load of sounds at it. And I find that with the drums too. There's like moments where you can have a bit of flair, and then there's moments like with Do I Want to Know, where it's like you're letting everyone else do the talking. And you're just there sort of like keeping everybody steady. So I think Black Sabbath was a big one for me.
The Black Sabbath reference about how a band can be heavy with so few elements makes so much sense when you're listening to AM. If you take a cut like Arabella, the drums in this section are quite stripped back when compared to previous Helder's parts, but they give the band a great rhythmic body. Worth mentioning as well that the Black Sabbath comparison fits very nicely when comparing sections of Arabella and War Pigs.
It's much less picturesque without a catchy. Evil minds that plot destruction.
Helders mentions another key influence in that same interview.
I've always sort of had I think I learned to play drums playing along to hip hop, so that's always in the background somewhere.
This is again another influence that, once it's mentioned, makes so much sense. Hip-hop drum beats are often quite simple, with a lot of care going into the production of the sounds, especially the snare and bass drum, and their placement in the bar. A track that brings this notion to mind is Why Do You Only Call Me When You're High, which has a really stripped down beat that you could find as a preset groove on a music production software, but it's played with real feel and exemplifies what Lowe describes as serving at the altar of the song. By the time we've reached Arctic Monkeys' two latest records, Helder's drumming style is almost unrecognizable compared to their first two. He's dropped all the way down to first gear and reached a smooth, cruising rhythm for a lot of the tracks. A lot of fans and critics comment on the fact that greater consideration is going into what is being played and how it affects the greater sound of the group. He's also received a lot of praise for composing parts that require feel rather than technique, with the former being harder to properly master than the latter. Take one of the standout tracks from Tranquility Base, 4 stars out of 5, and consider the space Helders leaves in the drum part and the sharp, striking snare sound. A A similar example can be found on The Car in the shape of body paint and its lavish extended outro section. Helders' drums carry a steady tempo as the wailing guitars, strings and vocals take center stage. It's difficult to grasp how truly challenging it can be for a top-tier outfit like Arctic Monkeys to musically and artistically evolve and release new music while still remaining relevant. All things considered, I think they've done a great job in pursuing evolution while retaining a sound that is distinctly their own. Helders' drumming journey throughout their discography is incredibly fascinating, and his creativity and vision ought to be recognised. The drummer has benefited and learnt from experiences with Iggy Pop, Lady Gaga and Josh Homme, which have further helped him expand his musical repertoire and refine his craft. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Remember to hit subscribe if you've enjoyed the content and so you don't miss anything else we'll post in the future. Thanks.